And it's just like learning how to read labels and understand food. Like if people could do that, like that would just be...
Things that are actually healthy don't need commercials. Bam, 3, 2, 1, go.
We're
Hi.
back.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. We
Yes.
are here with Marissa Wise. Are you the alpha in the pack? Because in Grey Wolves, they have an alpha female.
That's true.
And, well, no offense to CJ, but you're taller.
Yeah, I'm taller.
So,
Probably a little broader.
broad, yeah.
potentially. So I think that's how they establish dominance too. They fight. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a pretty effective way to establish dominance to almost anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Which, I mean, CrossFit and training is there's a lot of physicality and dominance, I guess, too.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it even in like classes. Yeah, I might be the alpha. Yeah, it's cool. The thing that's cool about the pack concept when we like decided to name the company was that even though there is hierarchy, but even within the hierarchy, like there are specific jobs.
Yeah.
So like there are like wolves that are like responsible for like combat training, or they don't call it that, I'm sure, but whatever the wolves tell themselves it's called. They get trained by that wolf, which is like cool.
That is very
That's
interesting.
really cool.
So I'm going to Yellowstone Park later in the year. We're staying. So I was just learning everything about Yellowstone, the animals, and I ended up started watching this documentary about Yellowstone and got right into the wolves, and I was like, hell yeah, I want to be a wolf. And then I thought one of the interesting things was that the females were the pack leader. I'm like, I'm bringing that up first thing I see Marissa.
It's the same thing with lions, I think, too. Aren't the females are the hunters and...
Yeah, in the prides. I don't
If
know.
you get to be the male lion, lay around all day, have women go hunt for you, you're the one in charge. Like, I mean, I don't know why the female lions are letting that go on, but he's winning. Like, and
Right,
maybe
that's a fair
if you don't
perspective.
realize that, it's probably the reason he's winning. But anyway, so Marissa, we wanted to have you on today because, find you to be interesting. I know that you and Todd and stuff had so much experience in CrossFit sport, and then you also, like you're saying, own an affiliate at different times. They have a ton of experience coaching, particularly in nutrition. So we wanted to go down the nutrition rabbit hole to get some perspective on what you know. And you maybe Todd had mentioned you had a kind of an interesting experience. And I don't want to. I didn't give any
Spoil it.
details. Yeah, so I'll let you tell your own story. But
Yeah.
I guess give us a little background on like where you were at or where you come from in the sport of CrossFit or how you got here, and then maybe we'll go down to nutrition from there.
Yeah. So training, I played basketball, played at RIT for my junior and senior year of college. My earlier years of school, I was at Gardner-Webb University, which is in North Carolina, Boiling Springs, North Carolina, kind of middle of nowhere. But I had a big dream of playing Division I basketball, and that really didn't actually probably happen until freshman year of high school. It was kind of like a late blooming thing. I was active and played sports, but I didn't realize that I had such a passion for basketball until kind of later on. And I got on an AAU basketball team that I really wasn't supposed to be on as far as like skill level goes. Like my dad kind of knew the coach, and he was like, she's really athletic. You should give her a shot. And so I kind of made the team because I was like athletic enough to be on the team, but I didn't really have any skills. So I really enjoyed that experience, and I actually felt like I really loved basketball because I sucked at it initially. Like it wasn't something that came naturally for me, and I knew I was going to have to like work at it. And so that was a kind of a cool experience. I actually was a more gifted soccer goalie, and my parents thought I was probably going to go on and just play college and then call it a day. But I really enjoyed what I was doing with basketball and the girls that I was playing with. And so I spent a lot of time building that out and just got like obsessed with like the physicality of that and training because the girls were so athletic. Like they always tell you like, oh, this small percentage of people go on to play Division I basketball. And it's like the team that I played on, there were 7 of us and all but one was able to sign at a Division I school. So like the AAU team and the girls that I practiced with every day were just like, and one of them still plays overseas and the other one still plays in the WNBA. So like just being in that environment and what it takes to be that athletic and how much work it takes. And so that's kind of where I got like pulled into athletics was kind of that experience. And in the midst of that, this kind of loops into nutrition, I guess. But in the process of trying to get really good at basketball, I started training a lot, and I had issues with an eating disorder, trying to get really lean. I had a lot of things going on at home, actually, too. My parents are together now, but at the time there was a lot of marital issues and separation.
Sure.
And my junior year of high school had an ACL injury. So that was my first like substantial sports injury. I had somebody like land on the outside of my knee. So it was like a trauma. It wasn't like a cutting one. And so I had that procedure done in my junior year. And then in the process of that, because I wanted to play at a high level in college, I decided I was going to transfer from my small private school out in Lima and go to Pittsford Mendon, which is a larger school. And so kind of had those three things happening. It was kind of like the perfect storm of like, I have no control over anything that's going on in my life. And anorexia is closely connected to things that you want to like control. Yeah. And so for me, those things that I could control was how much food I was intaking or not intaking, and then how much I was exercising. And so that was kind of something that I've really channeled into my nutrition coaching now, is kind of the emotional and psychological aspects of how we live our lives and how we manage stress, because that can play a huge role in how we view food and exercise. And so that's been a big part of my nutrition coaching currently. And then as far as the continuation of sport and CrossFit, I did land my dream, I guess, of going to a Division I school. I signed as a walk-on at Gardner-Webb, and then when I came back from the camp that I was at, I played in a AAU tournament kind of for fun. It was like an open age group, like so like they go in age groups, and there's like an 18 and above, so like college age kids. And I tore my other ACL in a game at the Carrier Dome, kind of just like playing. And so the coach said, you can still come down and play, but like you're basically going to be in the same spot of like trying out and trying to walk on next year. And so I was down there and rehabbing the knee. I ended up sustaining like a PCL sprain during the rehab. So it's just like trying to get back.
Yeah. Recovering from hurting.
Yeah. So that was like a call home every day, like battle, basically, like my whole freshman year of just like, not that I was like homesick. It was just like, this is so hard. Like, this is just, I'm away from home for the first time. I'm like trying to make the team and like stay on the team and rehab a knee.
That is hard. I didn't have an injury, but that freshman year, going to college and playing on another level of sport, because I played a little bit of Division III football. That first freshman year was rough. That first camp, like adjusting to all the new people. And, I can't imagine being hurt. Well, I guess it almost would have helped me if I got hurt.
I have a reason for this being so hard.
I wouldn't have had to get the crap beat out of me every day in practice to be last on the depth chart. But anyway, wow. Yeah,
so that was a challenging year. My first year away, and then sophomore year was probably equally as hard because I was physically capable of getting my ass beat a little bit. So like I remember like that sophomore year, like when I was back into training, I was spending the strength and conditioning coaches at Gardner-Webb were phenomenal, and that's kind of where my love for training and coaching came from. Actually, is they were really just like welcoming of me coming in for like extra sessions. Like when the team was in there, like, okay, like the knee still wasn't right. And so being able to like spend more time doing agility work, doing a more dynamic, explosive jumping, things like that would make me more comfortable like in practice. Cause I could just feel that I was still like doing a lot of favoring of that like side, and just, it continued to ingrain the value of strength, of like being strong, like physically, and how much that was going to like allow me to do on the court. I always understood that like conditioning was important. There was like a skills basketball coach that I used to watch on YouTube, and he was always like drilling like the most conditioned player is still going to be the best player, because you can do the skills for longer. So you can like stay out on the court for longer and make more shots just because you're not as fatigued. And so I really had that understanding of like doing the sprints, doing that work like made sense to me because it was going to allow me to do these other things. And so the strength and conditioning coaches there and being able to work with them and spend that extra time made a really big difference in my experience as an athlete. And that was really where I decided that I wanted to do strength and conditioning coaching like long term. Because my degree was I was pursuing a degree in biology at Gardner-Webb because I thought I maybe wanted to do physician's assistant or physical therapy, but I hadn't really decided yet. And then I did a short period of time at Roberts Wesleyan actually when I moved back to Rochester from Gardner-Webb. So some of the stuff that was going on at home kind of came to a head when I was at Gardner-Webb, and things weren't going as I wanted them to go as far as like basketball went. And I was just like getting to the point where I was ice bathing after the track morning sessions and after a skill session and just like.
So while you were doing this recovery and training, you were struggling with the anorexia a bit,
so not in college. So I pretty much was able to like battle that beast in high school, which was great.
Oh, good.
My parents put me, that's a good question in the timeline. My parents had me seeing a behavioral therapist here in Rochester, and I was in the outpatient program for adolescent health at Strong. So doing those things while I was at Pittsford Mendon actually. So when I transferred, they basically were like, if you don't continue to put weight back on, that like I had already gotten all physical allowances taken away, so I wasn't allowed to do any physical activity because of where my like heart rate was at.
Oh god.
And so then it was a weight issue of like, okay, you need to get your weight back up or you're not going to be able to participate. And then when I did that, I was able to start putting the weight back on and got cleared to play sport again. So that was good. But it did take like a kind of blip of time of getting ready. Like the season I wanted to have that senior year still wasn't quite what it could have been because of what I was dealing with from a physical standpoint with the eating.
That's pretty amazing though that you can even pull that off. I mean,
well, and I think I look back on it and I'm like, man, I was really blessed that I had something that meant so much to me with basketball, that like pulled me out of that, because I knew a lot of people, and I know some people still that struggle with eating disorders, and they don't have that thing that they're latched onto that's going to like pull them away from it, because there is a lot of identity that like when they talk about eating disorders, there's a lot psychologically there that doesn't get discussed, because people are like, oh, you wanted to be skinny, so you just ate less. Right. Like that's kind of the perception, I think.
When you say like the loss of or the things you want to control, I know that like being in control is a big thing for why people get into the different eating disorder stuff. But I've seen too like the feeling of they have no control. The people that have struggled with obesity problems, it's like they don't even know how to start. It seems so futile because to them 5 pounds loss at times seems like nothing. Right. Where if I lose 5 pounds, it probably is going to be noticeable within to a degree. Right. And it's like I wonder. This is kind of an off topic. I just got me thinking like that loss of control in the anorexia, and then the loss of control for someone struggling with obesity. Right. It's a different, but the way psychologically it hits has got to be very similar. Yeah. There's got to be some crossover, but
Well, and I was actually thinking, kind of on the point of loss of control, or like you're so connected to playing your sport, and then you're kind of forced to draw yourself out of it to get yourself back healthy. Like psychologically, that had to have been super challenging. Yeah.
Was there anything in particular that you felt helped you get control? Like, how did you get that part back? Just through?
Yeah, I think it was, the behavioral therapy is something that is definitely a gift, because a lot of people, and I was actually sharing with somebody that I know who's like currently struggling, and I told her, I said, it's interesting because not that many people get an opportunity to spend that much time on themselves or like looking at themselves, because that type of program forces you for an hour to 2 hours a week in like a concentrated, like one-on-one behavioral therapist setting, and on top of that, you're doing other like outpatient things of like the blind weigh-ins and like meeting with a dietitian and like all these other things. And so there is a lot of like self-exploration that happens in that process and that's where it's like the basketball thing. It's like I pushed myself to go through that process, even though it was painful and uncomfortable, because I wanted this other thing more.
Yeah.
And that's where people get stuck, is like if they don't want something else more than what they're currently going through, then they stay where they are for
like
longer.
Literally any situation though in life.
Right. Right. Exactly. And so I think that is something that is kind of interesting when we look at that like process for people. But
do you feel, so I was a personal trainer. I don't have my certification anymore, and I have a nutrition certification, but I was coaching adolescent athletes, like Irish dance competitors.
Cool.
And they really struggled a ton with eating the right foods or understanding there's like that battle with the parents of like what kind of food you should be buying for your kids who are going on to compete at like the national and world level.
Yeah.
Do you think that adolescent girls even specifically, I mean, guys probably struggle with eating disorders as well, but could benefit from a behavioral conversation occasionally? Or I don't know, is that too deep? It sounds like therapy to me.
Yeah. I think the fact that the foundation of that, especially like we see that in gymnastics and dance, like it's highly prevalent in those sports. And I think at the root of all of it really is like education. Like that's really the foundation. And like the problem, like you said, it's like, oh, the parents don't even know. It's like, well, the parents don't even know because they don't even know for themselves. Like they don't even know like what constraint, a healthy food would be. So I think it starts there is like education in the home, those types of things. And then I think we had a nutrition coach come in and talk to the teams when I was at school, when I was away at college. And that type of thing can be helpful too. I think like at that level, you see a lot of athletes like not eating enough for the most part at the collegiate level, like activity level wise, they're just like doing more physically than they've probably ever done before. And so I think having some education around it of somebody coming in and talking to the teams, I think proactive though with teens and dance and gymnastics, cheer, that could definitely go down a behavioral route. Even if they don't need it, like it's not going to be damaging to like have those conversations.
Because those sports, like there's such a
it's
like there's such a focus on like how you look physically. Like in Irish dance, the girls get tanned just like you would in a bodybuilding competition because your muscles stick out more on stage, and the judge is going to favor that girl who's like got the ripped quads versus the other one who might be like 10 pounds heavier, but a superior dancer. Yeah, for sure. It's terrible.
Yeah,
I see some stuff like when I used to wrestle in high school and stuff like that. And Kevin's actually talked about this. He used to wrestle a lot too. And I don't know if you'd see eating disorders in the same way with the boys like that wrestled. You had to make weight a lot. But the psychotic things that we used to do to cut weight and make weight are like
still disordered
so
patterns around food and body image.
Yeah, I mean, some of it, at least from my experience with the people I knew, I never saw anyone have outside of like wrestling season or making weight. It never ruined other parts of their life, but they would do crazy things or dangerous things or completely calorie restrict to cut weight. But
and I think that's the type of thing where it might not do anything like in the moment of like, because again, like you're cutting for a weekend of competing or whatever it is. But I think where you can run into like challenges is like, but you now know how to manipulate your body in a like destructive way. And so I think that's where you have to be careful of like that pattern of like, okay, I did that during this time for this reason. And like, I understand that it's not healthy and that I did it for this thing. But
you do all these things to make weights or to look a certain way. And then you know nothing about actually nutrition, how to eat well, how to feed your body, how to tell someone else to do it.
That's like my biggest gripe with like people doing bodybuilding shows and bikini shows and all that. I'm like, I'm all set.
I feel like I'm in a place with that where I'm just like, unless you feel like you're just gonna die unless you go on stage at some point, that it probably is not good for you. Like,
There just has to be like I've coached people. I've done those competitions. I've coached girls, guys for those competitions, and it's almost like you need there's reverse dieting concepts where you basically come back off your diet into a normal. But you got to talk to them beforehand about the psychology of what it's going to feel like, and because those first couple of days when you're no longer on a diet, you're not restricting any water to a degree or anything like that. You'll suddenly think you look fatter.
Yes.
But I'm like, you just look normal. You look good, but you look normal-ish. You went from ab veins to, like, normal abs, and that feels fat to you. And it's, like, psychologically, it messes with you.
Oh, for sure.
And, like, I think a good coach would have that conversation beforehand.
Yeah.
Sorry to all my athletes that I didn't have that conversation with beforehand. I was learning, but I experienced it myself. I mean, it'd be 2 days after the show, and like, you just have a normal amount of water under your skin, and you're like, I'm so fat already. Yeah. I gotta go back onto, and cut back. But
I'm hydrated like a normal person.
Yeah.
But anyone could experience that. Like, I had a stint where I was living in Connecticut and just super unhappy and lost a crap ton of weight. I was doing hot yoga twice a day, a little bit of CrossFit, probably not eating nearly as much. And I thought I looked great. And then I think about, like, then your pants fit different, like all the things. And you're like, yeah, but I was really depressed and unhealthy. Like, I have to think about that. Like, even though you think you were in your prime physically, like,
there were so many other things wrong.
Like, I was not eating. I was having, like, a hard-boiled egg for lunch because that's all I could stomach. I was so depressed.
Look at us now.
I know.
Look at us now. It's funny how much the food affects your brain. Well, obviously, we know that to be true, like, right, nutrition, mind, body awareness, health, it's comprehensive. It's not one thing. But, like, I don't think people grow up talking about, today you haven't been eating real good. It's going to affect your mood. Like, we talk to athletes and CrossFit athletes or, personal training clients all the time about that stuff. Yeah. But, like, day to day, you don't learn that growing up. Your teachers are never going to tell you that. Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, and that's something that my mom teaches biology, and then she's had a couple years where she's, like, filled in and taught health. And the 1 year, Todd did a talk on, like, strength and conditioning and training, and then I did a talk on nutrition. And that is one thing. She teaches at a private school, so we were able to come in and do that.
Sure.
Whereas in public schools, when it's like state mandated curriculum and things like that, you don't have as much flexibility. But that's one of the bigger issues is what is in the content in the textbooks is a lot of, like, my government, like, plate teaching where it's like,
6 to
3
12
cereal a day,
or like what a doctor
right.
like gets educated on nutrition. They just like hand you a piece of paper.
Yeah, here's the pamphlet.
Like, I mean, there is no question. I mean, if you ever read Gary Taubes' book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, he talks a lot about it. But I mean, the miseducation that the government bestowed on an entire generation of people is clear and direct reason that we have a quote unquote like health epidemic, or pandemic, or whatever the demics is.
Yeah.
Of obesity across the U.S. What, 33% of people are classified as obese in the United States.
I think it's
57 overweight.
Okay.
33 obese.
Okay.
And that's one out of 3 people are considered morbidly obese.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
Yeah.
That's not great.
That's a unsettling statistic.
Yeah.
Travel though, if you go to an airport, you'll know where they are. Like anytime I've traveled different places, you see. Like, I've been in Washington, D.C. one time, and it was so hot. It was like 95 degrees, and I was going around. I'm in shape, but I am sweating bullets. We're going to, like, look at the monuments, and we're going inside museums. And I would just see these people left and right. I mean, they were struggling to walk down the side. And I go, if I was that big, I don't think I would go on this vacation or this trip. It would just be so much more work than worth.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's horrible. It's tough to see. But anyway, our goal is to try to fix that, right,
yes.
on a broader scale.
Well, and it's hard when you're in a gym, because I feel like I notice it more when I am, like, traveling, because my, like, microcosm is like people who exercise, and then I'll go into a gym and see other people that are exercising, or people who are maybe overweight and trying to, like, making efforts to lose weight. But yeah, when you go places outside of your normal, like, bubble, I feel like it just, like, gets magnified.
Yeah, definitely. You spend a lot of time with people that are either in pursuit of, better health and wellness, or have already really achieved the level of health and wellness. Now they're just pushing it to see how far they can take it, or just maintaining it.
Yeah.
So let's go into a little bit about what the dive details of like some nutrition questions, some topics I just want to get opinions on and hear what you have to say. Take us through like a little your background on nutrition, and you know, obviously we know a little bit of your personal story now, but what's your formal education and such?
Yeah, so after I was done, did my time at Gardner-Webb, I did a little bit at Roberts Wesleyan, and that's kind of where I changed my route of biology to coaching. So I was able to finish up at RIT with applied arts and sciences degree, and they actually have like a kind of a create your own situation. So really interesting. When I met with the guidance counselor there, applied arts and sciences is kind of their way of allowing you to like double major without double majoring. And so I was already in like physical therapy style courses, and then they had like injury prevention classes and strength and conditioning things. And so I ended up settling on human wellness management. So it allowed me to take all of those strength and conditioning courses, consumer nutrition, sports nutrition, all that good stuff. They have a dietitian, but I knew I didn't want to work in a conventional like setting.
Yeah.
And so I finished up at RIT there. I started applying for internships for strength and conditioning coaching because I still felt like out of all the classes that I took, that was kind of still the route that I wanted to go. And I don't know if I was fighting the nutrition thing just because of my experience with the eating disorders of like, oh, like I've been down that path. Like, I don't know if that's going to be a good fit for me or if I'm going to be able to like manage that. Like there was just kind of like those types of things happening, I think.
Yeah.
And so I was applying for a lot of internships in state, and there was one that I applied for out of state at Stanford, and I was just like, oh, there's no way I'm going to get that internship, like, whatever. And of course, they called me for an interview, and I got a call back like a week later that I had gotten it, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, I can't. First of all, it's the only one I applied for out of state, and it's Stanford. Like, I can't not go to Stanford. And so I took the internship there, and I started calling around and trying to find places in the Bay Area to live, which was like a whole other like debacle. I ended up, actually it was like a really cool living situation, but it was like a kind of co-op-y, like I had a roommate in a room in a house with a lot of other people, which is pretty common for that area. Like the more you get towards like San Francisco, it's like more and more that way. And from
like hostel living.
Yeah. And so the roommate, I got super lucky because the roommate that I had is still a friend of mine. It was just like really cool. I feel like uncommon, but I got my Santa Clara internship first. So I was at Santa Clara first. Santa Clara University is a Division I school, and in Santa Clara, California. And so that was where that house was. And I didn't have a car, just packed a bag because I was like, I'm going to be close enough to the school. I'll just get a bike when I get out there and just like bike back and forth because it's California and it's warm. I'm from New York. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
So the first year I was there, it was like that. I wore shorts all the time, and it was like, felt like summer to me every day. But it is Northern California.
Yeah,
so
it
like
gets chilly in San Francisco.
Yeah. So by the time the next year rolled around, I was like thin skinned and like a Californian, like, no, I need a car. Like this is freezing. But anyway, so I was at Santa Clara for 3 months. And when that internship wrapped up, I was intending on coming back. But at that point I had met Todd. And so I was like, I kind of feel like I should find a reason to like stay here longer. And that's when I applied for Stanford. So got the Stanford internship, which is going to be a little bit more commuting. I was still on the bike for that one. And I was taking the Caltrain out to Stanford from where I was living in Santa Clara. And I think I had upgraded to a road bike by then because I was like on like a cruiser bike like first year. And both internships are strength and conditioning internships for the most part are unpaid. Like it's very hard to find unless you're a grad assistant. It's very hard to find something that's paid. So I was working at Lululemon here in Rochester before I went out there, and they had set up a transfer for me, but it was like wild because it was like the first team would come in at like 6 a.m. and you'd have people in there through practice like 5 p.m. And then I'd go to like an unboxing shift at Lululemon from like 9 to 11, go home, go to sleep, wake up at 5. Like it was just like...
Well, that'll make you hungry for something more.
Yeah. And so I was basically working at Lululemon so I could like pay to stay and live basically, but just like knowing like, okay, I'm doing this to get the experience that I'm getting basically. And so Stanford was definitely worse hours wise, and then I had to add that Caltrain commute in there too. So I'd like ride my bike to the Caltrain at like 4:30 in the morning, get on the Caltrain, take the Caltrain out there, stay out there the whole day, come back. But it was incredibly rewarding. Like both internships were, but it also exposed that like it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. There were a couple things in there, like there's a lot of red tape in like what you can do, or like let's say a clip breaks at the gym. You don't just order a clip. You gotta like send in a ticket, and then someone's gotta say it's okay, and then you gotta get the budget, and you gotta like not that you do that for one exclusive. You'd probably just be like, oh, the clip's broken, but like that type of thing of like if something breaks, you can't just like go to Home Depot and like fix it.
That's how I believe our government works. just for the record, I believe that is the bureaucracy of life now.
Yeah. So that was.
Don't get me started on that topic.
I actually was thinking when I was here, I was like, I wonder how politically charged they are. I have a lot of things that I feel like.
Don't get me started. We could do that.
Yeah, but that's another rabbit hole.
All right, imagine Marissa, the one time we're like, hey, I don't think we're going to get canceled. Do we have Marissa on? We're like, yeah, they're never.
Matt just keeps joking about how we haven't gotten canceled yet. Yeah. I'm like, we're not inappropriate.
Yeah, one of my favorite YouTubers has a shirt out that says cancel culture on it. Like, yeah, it's my man. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah. It's like I have just a deep-seated urge to reject everything from either side of everything and like just go back to the Wild West, living on the range, survive with the land rather than have to be dependent or pick a team to live on. Yeah, what it seems like. But anyway, let's stick to nutrition before I say something I will definitely regret.
So, Santa Clara University, Stanford, strength conditioning coaching, and in the midst of being like, man, as cool as it is to work with these athletes, I landed women's basketball, women's gymnastics, men's water polo. There was like it was a racket sport. Was it tennis at Stanford?
Squash?
It was tennis or badminton. One of the two.
I was going to say paddleball, but paddle's more of a winter sport, so I don't know if they play that on the West Coast.
Yeah. And then I had women's swimming, which was unbelievable. So there were two Olympians on that.
In all these sports, like strength and conditioning?
It was strength and conditioning,
okay.
Wow. Strength and conditioning coaching for those teams, which that was also really fun because there were 8 people in that internship class, and 5 of them, I think, wanted football. I think there were only like 4 spots, which I was like, it would have been cool. The guy who was there coaching strength conditioning for football was really well known for neck injury prevention. Mm-hmm. So it would have been like a cool thing, like cool person to like learn under, but I really wanted women's basketball. And I worked with every sport at Santa Clara because the internship was smaller. And so we got to work with every team. But water polo in California, those athletes are just unbelievable. And so men's water polo was really cool at Stanford, and the specific strength coach that was working with them, I got along with really well. And then, women's swimming, they had a couple Olympians that were there at the time. And so it was just like the caliber of the athlete.
I was like, were you just like really geeking out the whole time? Because
I didn't. Somebody else told me about the swimmers. Like, they weren't like, I'm an Olympian, like, or I'm going to Olympic trials. Like, somebody else, like, you're working with women's swimming? And I was like, yeah. And they were just like, do you know so-and-so? I was like, yeah. And they were like, yeah, they, like, made it through Olympic trials. Like, they're going to the Olympics. I was like, what? So,
that's wild.
So it was really cool, but it was definitely, like, burning the candle at both ends as far as, like, being out there. Like, one intern ended up having to leave because they were, like, found out that he was like living in his car to stay out there, and they were just like, we just like, whatever, can't like be having you guys like make those types of like, we don't want you making those types of like choices.
I think you'd want that guy hired.
Yeah, right? I mean, he's grinding.
Right? Yeah. I mean, help the guy out. Get him a place to stay.
That's the thing. Like, that's the unfortunate thing about strength conditioning. It's like, it would not cost the school that much to like put all of us on a meal plan or like do just things like that just to
but that's going to cut into their bottom line profits, and they can't milk the system if they help you guys out. You're only students. Don't get me started. I told you.
I know.
Oh boy,
it's crazy. But so that the internship did its job though. Like it weeded me out in that sense of like, the hours, the travel, all of those things that go into it, like it just wasn't what I wanted. And the Lululemon that I was at, we did a beach cleanup, and I met a manager at a store that was going to be opening a new store at Stanford. And she was like, we're only taking on full-time, but we'd love to have you. And I was like, oh, okay, shoot. Well, now I have an opportunity to like make money full-time. I was starting to like, at the time I was doing some dabbling in CrossFit and trying to like fit it in and do it at a strength conditioning facility, which Stanford was. So it wasn't there was no rig.
What year is this? Like, what year are we in?
2015, I graduated from RIT. So 2016 is when I'm starting
so CrossFit was picking up business pretty big. So especially out there.
Yeah, there were a lot of affiliates. I was training at Sundown CrossFit, which was Todd's first affiliate, and when I had time. And then other days I was just like doing the workout and trying to piece it together with what I had at the gyms, because they did allow us to like train. They wanted us to like train during the day. So
So at what point do you get into nutrition?
Yes. So that's kind of when I'm at this crossroads with Stanford, Sundown CrossFit, and Lululemon. So I end up taking the full-time position at Lulu and taking on coaching CrossFit, like starting officially coaching CrossFit. So I was coaching strength conditioning, coaching a lot of the movements, but no dynamic gymnastics. And I guess there's the concept of mixed modal, because they're doing the Olympic lifts and they're doing a lot of the components of CrossFit. They're just not doing it in the structure that is CrossFit. Right. And so like learning that, and starting to pick up more coaching at the affiliate. And I had done my level 1 that year. It was the following year, I think, because I had my CSCS. So I was coaching on my CSCS for the most part.
So you had a strong background in traditional strength and conditioning coaching.
Yes.
And then we're doing CrossFit. Like, I mean, that's kind of a philosophical difference in the two.
Yeah.
How did you make,
I think a lot of that was like, I understood, and I think there is a place for like merging the two a little bit. I don't think that traditional CrossFit programming would be a wise choice for most collegiate teams. I think there's a way to make it work, but not of just like, here's CrossFit.com. This will make you prepared for your sport.
Right.
Like that doesn't make sense. But I also don't think like them being like, throw this ball while you're standing on a BOSU because it's going to like get you ready to throw a basketball down the court. Like, I also don't think that makes a lot of sense. And so I think if the fields were to kind of converge and like create a program, I think it would be optimal. And we see glimmers of that with like professional sport trainers that are doing things that are like, oh, that looks like CrossFit. Like, so yeah, I think because I saw what it was doing to the general population soccer mom client, I was just like, man, if that works with this population of people, it would 100% work with these high-end semi-professional collegiate athletes.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that's kind of how I was able to like make that transition. I also personally wasn't seeing results that I wanted in myself, because a lot of what we had to like at Santa Clara, we had to write a program and then do the program that like, okay, this is the problem in my own physical whatever. This is the program I'm going to write, and then I'm going to achieve that thing. And I just found that like it just took longer to like get to the thing compared to what I was doing in the CrossFit classes that I was going to. And so that physically, I was like, I want to do this for myself because I think it's going to work. And I also, because of the lifestyle and the stress and the lack of sleep, was like the heaviest that I had been body weight wise, and like probably the weakest. Like I was riding the road bike around for like miles. Like, so I was super aerobic because I was either biking or running to get places. And like how tight the schedule was, like I was riding hard. Like I was riding that road bike hard. Like I had it to like a science of like, okay, if I ride it this fast, I'll get there at this time. Like, so, but I definitely wasn't taking care of my body as far as like sleep, stress management, food. Because a lot of it was just like I wasn't eating fast food by any means, but it was just like on the go, like grab a bar, grab a protein shake, grab a blah, blah, blah. And of course, starting CrossFit, it's like, oh, you do paleo. That's what you do when you start CrossFit. And so there was a lot of almond butter happening, a lot of sweet potatoes, probably not enough chicken, like a lot of that. And so it was just like, this like doesn't, like what's happening to my body physically doesn't make sense. Because I feel like I'm eating a lot of the right foods, minus some of the some of the on-the-go foods. But I'm not, my weight's not changing. I'm not feeling much better in my training or in the gym. So there's a lot of like food timing issues of just like miseducation of like how to do that. And a lot of that comes from like, you take a sports nutrition class and they basically tell you to drink chocolate milk after you work out and drink Gatorade during. Like that is like basically what you get tested on in a sports nutrition course. So like I had a lot of formal education and not a lot of like anecdotal information. And so I started to track my macros at that point. Todd had a coach at the gym that did some macro coaching with people. And so she started kind of just giving me like some resources of like, try reading this online or, you know, whatever. And so I started tracking, still not necessarily like certain percentages of anything. I was just kind of like going for it. And then that's where I started, more of like a 40-30-30 approach. So 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% fat. And that's where I started to see changes in my body. And I really actually, that first year that I started working on my nutrition, I saw almost no change in my weight. So when I started working on my nutrition, I was 197. That's like the heaviest that I was. I am 5'10", but that's still on the heavier side. I know some female athletes that are in that range. Like think like Venus and Serena style. Like those athletes are heavier. And so that's where I started at. And I was just like, I don't even want to say I didn't feel great in my body because of what my body could do. Like my physical activity level, I actually felt pretty good. But as I started to feel better, I was like, man, it's one of those things where like, you don't realize how good you could feel until you feel that good.
Well, or how bad you did feel until you spend a lot of time. Like, for example, like people who eat crappy food and drink too regularly, they kind of just hum along. Then they get, say they stop drinking for weeks or months at a time and they're eating healthy food, vegetables and meat, nuts, seeds, the whole nine. And then all of a sudden they have like a little weekend bender with the boys. This is what happened to me sometimes. And then I'm always like astounded at how terrible I feel. After, and it's like, not like you did anything that over the top compared to like, normal people. But it's just like you get so used to feeling good that even you're tired is still pretty good. And then you remember what it's like, And that's how actually a lot of people walk around every single day.
I can't even believe it.
And they just don't even understand how terrible they feel. They
don't.
It doesn't register. All right. So, okay. I want to get into asking you some questions just on different nutrition topics. I think if people have all sorts of questions.
Well, I want to throw in my nugget about, so my weight, for the whole first year of tracking my macros, I think I dropped to like 193, like initially, and then I stayed there. But inches wise, I had like a lot of change happen. So like that's one thing that was like really interesting to me. And just like, I think a lot of people get stuck there because they start it. And let's say they go for 6 months and there's not a whole lot of change like on the scale. They're just like, oh, this isn't working. And so I think like making sure, like for me, I had those measurements, which I was like super grateful for. And I just like, I'm somebody that's like, I might be like too loyal to something for too long at times, like, because I was just like, no, I'm doing this. Like I was so committed to it that I was able to like withstand not losing the weight for that year. And then when I did my measurements, like at the year mark, I was like, oh my gosh. Like I think in total, like bust, waist, hip measurement, it was like 14 inches. Like I had lost like a foot. And so it's like that type of thing. It's like, if you're only using one metric or one way to measure your progress, and like that doesn't even include all the change that I had like in training and in the gym, because that was like the first year that I just trained CrossFit, like not competitive CrossFit, but just like come in, do the hour, and then go home. And so now that was 2016, and so I think that's one thing that just like really catapulted me with wanting to get into nutrition coaching was just like, this works. And it's just like a matter of how to deliver it to people and how to educate people on like making those changes.
Well, that's the thing. Like in my own health coaching business that I had, I mean, just like teaching someone to like measure in different ways and like, don't get on the scale. Like if you think it's going to like piss you off, stress you out, like it's maybe not a metric you need to worry about. Like how do your pants fit?
Yeah.
How much energy do you have? Like what do you feel when you eat your food? Like those things are vitally more important.
Yeah, sometimes I get frustrated. I understand the reasons, but I get frustrated when clients are, I weighed the same. I'm like, well, you look less fat. And that alone tells me something's going right.
And you're stronger,
and it's like,
and now you can do this movement. You know
I tell them bluntly, I'm like, well, you look better. You look like your skin looks better. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, you have a jawline again. That's nice, right?
Yeah.
But I've only lost 3 pounds. I'm like, you lost 3 pounds on the scale. You've probably lost 10 pounds of fat. You know? Especially people that didn't do any working out before, and they just
yes, and that's the thing. Like a lot of times when people start something, they're starting like everything, or they're trying to start everything. Like they're going to start working out, they're going to start nutrition, all those things, and like like if you are starting to maintain or build muscle tissue, then that is going to throw off what you're reading.
All right, yeah. So like you new people to come in the gym, right? The first time, or they're like, hey, I need to lose weight. Maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not, or whatever their fitness goal is. But we all know that it generally stems right around nutrition. Whether you do this type of working out or this type of sport program or CrossFit or something, we know that ultimately what you're eating is what's going to make the difference. Do you have a way of breaking it down for them, the new person who's like, because I feel like I can give you all the details on all the nutrition stuff. We can go down a route and just overwhelm you like with a tidal wave of information that you're never going to follow. Yeah. And so I've got a system that I find works pretty well to a degree. Yeah. Maybe where would you go with that person?
I think the first thing, and I guess this has evolved for me like over time, but I think the most valuable piece of information that I can get from those people is like what they're doing currently. Mm-hmm. So like, what are you doing right now? Because that information tells me, okay, whatever it is that they're doing right now is not getting them the result, which is why they're here. Like that's why they're at the gym, or that's why they want nutrition coaching. So like, obviously things need to change, but within that, there's a lot of data. So like, let's say you track your food for a week and you're not doing a nutrition program and you're not training, like this is just at homeostasis, this is what you're eating. That can be really valuable to that person or to the coach, because if they're eating 1,800 calories a day and they're maintaining their weight and this is X energy level, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. That's where you're starting. Or like, that's what you eat to maintain where you're at currently. You might already be under eating, which is another thing. You have to look at like diet history and activity level during the day, like non-exercise activity level, things like that. But that can really help guide where I go with that client of like, okay, this is like what they're currently doing. And so I think that's kind of where I typically start with people. But I would say that majority of the time, the secondary recommendation is like pulling back and removing packaged foods. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is like a really easy, like broad stroke thing, that it's like, how many foods are you eating that are coming out of a package that aren't like real whole foods? And how do we bring that down by 10% and 20% and until it's gone? And so I think that can be something that is like really easy for people to apply, or like how many foods are you eating that you can't read the ingredients on? Yeah. Like,
I always use the quality. Like,
yeah.
Oh, and I try to get them. There's a few things I say never to do, but I typically do say, never drink soda. Don't drink your sugar. Don't drink your calories. Yeah. If you can do that alone, I think a lot of people make. But I always say, we go down the road of after we do kind of the history. Yeah. We'll go quality. Just eat things that aren't processed. You can eat as much vegetables. You can eat as much fruit. You can eat as much whatever things you want, nuts and meat, and till you're full. Yeah. But just get rid of the crap first, and that's usually wave one. So do you find that like you typically have to go some form of tracking?
Eventually, yeah, because at some point you run into a quantity issue, whether that's them needing to have more or to have less. And so there are kind of two paths though. Like Precision Nutrition does a lot of plate building where you use the size of your hand, your thumb, etc., to measure out protein, carb, fat amounts. And so I think that can work for people, but I think that there is a ton of value in, at minimum, going through 6 months to a year of like weighing and tracking your foods to really like learn what a portion actually looks like. Because I think if you're going to spend the time tracking, but you've never spent time weighing, like, how do I know that what you think 3 ounces of chicken is what 3 ounces of chicken actually is?
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And so I think that's where that comes into play. And it's hard because people are like, I don't want to have to weigh and measure my food for the rest of my life. It's like, I get it.
They don't have to.
Yeah.
You do it for a little while and you can eyeball it after.
Yeah, and I get it. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard because there's this other part of me that's like, okay, if you made the cookie recipe, you're making cookies from scratch every day for a year, and you're measuring, and the next year you're like, I'm going to intuitively make the cookies. At what point does the cookie start turning out bad?
A long time, but eventually.
Right.
Eventually.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's the thing where people just have to be aware of, like, you can go down that path and intuitively eat. Just be aware that at some point the cookie might not taste as good as the cookies when you're following the recipe.
And this is the exact reason that sometimes I like the New Year's resolutions or I like the food challenges, because it's a check-in. It's like, hey, let me take a period of time to reset and relearn the things, readjust my habits. Because I'll get in the same thing where I'm just eating straight up too much protein, too much everything. I think the foods I tend to like, I don't really, sweets are great, but I love like fat foods, so ribeye steaks and things like that are just packed. I'm saying they're terrible for you, but too much of anything is not good.
Right.
Yeah. That's funny. I always tell people that I do not want you to have to track your food forever, or not all the time. Right. But right now, you need to either lose some weight or you need to get healthier. You need to learn about food. You don't know anything, essentially.
Right. Right.
And it's like,
well, and that's the other thing tracking gives you, right? Like, you pull it up on MyFitnessPal and you're like, oh, chicken thighs do have fat and protein in them. It's not just meat equals protein. Like, proteins have different macro profiles. And so eggs, equal fat, equal protein, basically. I think they're like 1 gram off from each other. But it's like, most people are like, oh yeah, eggs are protein. I'm going to have 6 of them. And it's like, you can have 6 eggs.
Or they'll go the other way. And, eggs are all bad for you. And you can never eat eggs.
Yeah, cholesterol.
I know.
You can have eggs.
You can have eggs, people. You can have eggs. We'll talk about that's the complicated part. It's trying to make it manageable, digestible. No pun intended.
2-minute warning.
2-minute warning. What? We'll adjust. All right, so... so I want to ask you some questions and just give your feedback on different topics. I know people will ask. So one would be vegetarians. What's your thought about the vegetarians?
I think that it's doable. I think you should be getting regular blood work done to make sure that you are balanced and not super deficient, because that's what we tend to see with people is like vitamin B deficiency is something that that's really common with people who are vegetarian or vegan. I think that the other piece of it is that it takes a lot of work. So to eat something that's balanced in a vegetarian style, there's a lot more that goes into prepping your meals and your foods. So like if you go to a restaurant and you order something that's vegetarian, it's not balanced with proteins, carbs, and fats. It's just not, because the world isn't set up for vegetarians to be successful. It's really not set up for anyone to be successful with their food in general, but even more so for vegetarian and vegan individuals. So I think that's just kind of my like fair warning for people is just like, I'm fine with you doing it. I just like, these are the kind of tenets of what you're going to have to do to be successful with because a lot of people have aesthetic goals, losing body fat, putting on lean muscle. So like, this is what it would look like. That's kind of my route is like, this is what it's going to look like for you to achieve that. Yeah. Are you willing to do those things to get there? And like, if you don't have like a really strong reason for why you're doing vegetarian or vegan, then we would just need to like make those changes for you. So that's kind of my
That's a very similar conversation. It's like, well, you can, but here's exactly. You're gonna need to, and I don't want to discourage people because I think there's a lot of healthy aspects,
Yes.
Compared to just eating a standard American diet. The vegetarian.
I think there's a lot of,
options
and that's the thing. Like, I have a lot of times like, "Oh, have you seen the Game Changers documentary?" I'm like, yes, I have seen it. But
or
there,
the What the Health documentary. That's the other one.
There's a lot of there's a lot of science in Game Changers in particular that was not good. As far as like the studies that are referenced in there. So like, anytime anybody watches documentary things like that, I'm like, go to the website, find the information about the documentary, and look at the actual studies. Yeah. Like, try to pull those, because that would be something that I would want to look at. And
that one kept referencing a lot of studies that were like, there was no control variable, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I think, though, out of that documentary, the thing that I loved about it is that a lot of people are talking about eating more plants, and that's great. Like, if you can add 200 grams of mushrooms to your meal and take an ounce of protein off, or meat protein, to get more from vegetation, great. Like, that's awesome. Because most people aren't getting 600 to 800 grams of fruits and vegetables per day, and if watching that exposed to you, man, these are the values, or this is what I get out of eating more fruits and vegetables, and they're going to add that in, then awesome. But I think macros and vegetarian and vegan style of eating can be challenging, but it can be done. It's just, it is more work.
Yeah.
So.
I always have the issue, though, like, it's awesome if someone's shifting from like a standard American diet to eating, they think it's going to make them automatically healthier.
Right.
If they're going to go vegetarian, which could be true, right? Based on their needs as an individual from day to day. But then they start working in all of those like artificial meats.
Right.
And I just think there's a tendency to eat more packaged food because you're looking for the convenience of having the things that remind you of your diet before.
Right.
I don't even miss
meat.
That's
where it gets
does
tricky.
Does Meat ever ask about me? Sometimes I drive by Meat's house late at night just to see if he's home.
Well, that's like I think the latest with that stuff is they're marketing that it sizzles like meat. Like,
I
that's
have had the Impossible Burger, and it does taste damn but pretty freaking close.
That's concerning.
It is, but that's exactly it. It's like, but what is it? It's like pink on the inside and brown on the outside.
Well, no, it's because they're pulling heme iron. Yeah, it's a long thing. I don't even think it's like, I was like a little disturbed watching like the video of how they like extract like the heme iron and like make it.
I wouldn't eat that crap in general.
I just tried it to see.
I like vegetarian things. There's vegetarian dishes, veggie burgers and stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll go eat dinner at the Red Fern once a week if I could afford to. But their stuff is so good.
How about supplements? Are you a supplement proponent or?
Yeah, I think it's a pyramid thing though for me. Like, as far as like the foundations of kind of what we were talking about. Of, all right, let's go quality and quantity. Sleep, hydration, other lifestyle habits and behaviors, and then like at the tippy top, after you've done all of those things, it's like, all right, let's talk about supplementation. So I think for me, it's making sure that all of those other things are in line. But I think my staples, like vitamin D, most people are vitamin D deficient, so
especially in the Northeast.
Yes, and so supplementing with vitamin D, you can like dial in that actual like dosage by getting your blood work done, but majority of Americans in general are vitamin D deficient. So,
and a lot of times when we say vitamin D deficient, like there is a bunch of people that they've got enough, quote unquote, but what is optimal? What is the and that's kind of discussed a lot. Same thing with fiber. I always kind of recommend a fiber supplement because the minimum is like 25 to
I think it's
30
10
grams.
It's like 10 grams per 1,000 calories that you're eating is like for fiber.
But I mean, the recommendation, the minimum recommendations, that's like the minimum you should get. Where what's the most optimal for your gut and everything could be way more.
Right. And that's the thing too. Like, you can go down like the gut microbiome testing and like stool testing route to like see kind of like the health of your gut. But I think fiber is a tough one too, because if you go, like, some people go way the other way, and then it's just like, oh, you're just like pushing like you're just like flushing through your gut too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like you're going the other way. So there's definitely like a balance there, but that can be really just like, yes, you would either need to get gut biome testing done, or it's just like a personal, like, okay, I'm pooping regularly.
Yeah.
The quality is good. I feel relatively good during the day. You're getting anywhere from 600 to 800 grams of fruits and veggies. So you're getting the micronutrients that you need. So that's kind of like a fiber thing. But the other thing with fiber is volume. If you're doing
enough of the fruits and vegetables, if you ever follow like the 800 gram challenge, that concept, I mean, you're getting enough fiber there from doing that.
Yes. Yeah. Which I like her approach. That's E.C. Sinskowski.
Oh, yeah. I like E.C. a lot.
She's good. Yeah. But that's a hard, like, that's another one. Like, you have to be weighing and measuring your foods to know if you're getting anywhere from 600 to 800 grams.
What about collagen? Matt and I keep having this.
I don't care. I just don't know about collagen.
I'm like, I swear everything feels better when I'm taking collagen.
I know they just have a point of reference. I'm like, I don't know. I don't use it. So
yeah. I mean, so the upsides to collagen is that it is hypoallergenic for most people. So collagen is something that's already occurring in our bodies and in our cells. And so for people who maybe can't have whey proteins or can't have other types of protein powders, the collagen proteins, marine collagen, they have a plant collagen out now. So there's a lot of options for people to supplement their protein intake with collagen. However, I think people can get a little crazy with it of like, I've had clients where I like look through their food logs and I'm like, oh my gosh, like so much collagen, because they're just trying to hit that, like, instead of like prepping meats or like getting food ready for the week, they're just like, oh, just dump some collagen in there, like, you know, whatever. Or like I have people who are like, oh, I had to drink 2 protein shakes to hit my protein goal. And I'm like, okay, we got to make some like adjustments there. So that's kind of my like, I think, so I recently did some reading on collagen like dosing, but I think it might be 10 to 15 grams per day for like skin, hair, nail benefits, and then I think it goes like 15 to 25. They've got more research out now on injury recovery, so like taking it to like support for recovering from an injury.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really good for your joints.
Yes,
and your like
ligamentous tissues.
Yeah, the elasticity and stuff.
And then I think like 25 to 30 maybe, there's like preliminary stuff out on like long-term fat loss and your body's ability to like lose fat. That's the one I kind of know the least about, and I'm kind of like the most suspect with. I think it might have been Precision Nutrition that was talking about the like how much you would need to take per day, but it is not inherently like a muscle building protein.
Right.
But we don't eat protein just to build muscle. Like, yes, it is our primary macro for that, but protein has such a broad impact on the body and like what we use it for. And so like if collagen protein is your way of like caring for skin, hair, nails, and like that type of like protein, I know people that do take it every day and notice like a really big difference. And so I think it can be, again, it depends. And so I think that if you're going to try it, though, that it's worth doing it with consistency and regularity versus like, oh, I'm just going to take this today because I'm low on protein. No, just like log it as something that you're going to take 15 to 20 grams of every day and monitor if there is any change in how you're feeling.
It's so interesting that you're saying clients are like using it as a protein source because I'm not even like considering that it's like protein when I take it. I put a scoop in my coffee or I use Vital Proteins pre-workout, so it's in their pre-workout and it's like 5 grams per scoop, but it's not a ton, but still like
it is funny. They're literally I got the sleep one from them.
They put collagen in everything.
There's collagen in it. I'm like,
they're like immune supply. They put like 5 grams of collagen in it. I'm like, all right,
5 grams in.
What's the brand?
Vital Proteins, but that's their like flagship supplement. So it does make sense.
Yeah. They are one of the better ones that I've found clean. As far as like mixing in. Like I've had some people be like, oh, they order some random brand and they're like, it's super clumpy. And I'm just like, ugh.
It does work better in like a hot beverage.
Yeah, but it can't be too hot or then it'll also clump. It's got to be like just the right hot.
Yeah. It seems
the trick, those of you, if it's clumping, you got to throw like a splash of like an odorant almond milk into your hot coffee if you're drinking it hot.
Yeah.
I drink ice, so it's not as much of an issue. But yeah,
it does mix well. Put it in the frother with your with like your nut pods, and then
there you go. See.
But yeah, I mean, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I do notice the difference in like how fast my nails are growing and the quality and the elasticity of my like facial skin. Nothing else. I swear it's why I didn't break my elbow bone heads when I dislocated my elbow because I was taking it consistently.
There you go. You heard it here first, people.
Testimonial. Only one scoop a day.
Yeah, and if Vital wants to support our podcast,
Vital Proteins,
you guys can reach out to us, and we will accept payments in the form of cash, money, or
that's
advertising.
Just funny.
Or cryptocurrency.
I mean, whatever. I'm open. I'm open-minded.
And this is where we get canceled.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about some currency now. A few more quick questions. You can kind of sum up. What's the main thing people are doing wrong? Like you see people come in the gym and they don't make progress, or people that are clearly just walking around the streets who are not in good health. If you had to broad stroke it?
Yeah,
I almost feel like I know the answer coming, but I just want to hear it.
I think for me it's not like a sexy answer, but it's like behavioral and lifestyle guidelines. Mm-hmm. So just like, I have people come in and they're just like, I'm sleeping 6 hours. And I'm just like, okay, like let's start there. And like hydration. So it's just like things, stress management, work, all those things. So I think a lot of it is there because like handling those things and getting those lined up, like just opens the door for better maintenance of like everything else. But I think food specific, I think the amount of like overeating and convenience foods and like not understanding like the density of foods. So EC, I know, has posted a lot of these where it's like a piece of like banana nut loaf, like from Starbucks or something like that. And then like a plate of food, like full plate of breakfast foods. Mm-hmm. And it's just like they're equal in caloric value. And yet the micronutrients and the food volume and how like satiated you're going to feel from the full plate of eggs, a slice of toast, some veggies, maybe avocado, and some breakfast meat, bacon, turkey bacon, whatever, is so much more filling than the slice of banana nut loaf that's going to have you hungry in an hour from there. Not to mention the sugar, the preservatives, everything else that's in that. And so I think just understanding like the foods that are out there that are telling you that they're healthy are probably not. Yeah. And it's just like learning how to read labels and understand food. Like if people could do that, like that would just be...
Things that are actually healthy don't need commercials.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always seen that it's almost like an obliviousness to what they're eating or putting in their body. People that are in the worst health are usually the most oblivious. There's very few people that are like thinking about it and then like not getting good results.
Well, there's
and that the word good results, can vary. Person, body types are different, but like health is kind of universal. Usually the markers of health are pretty common, or they're the same for all people, even if the person doesn't look quite the same. But, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that it's like Starbucks has a protein box. Mm-hmm. It's called a protein box. It's got like 15 grams of protein in it, which those of you who are tracking macros know that 15 grams is definitely not what you should be eating at a serving for a protein. But there's more carbs and fats in it than there is protein. And but because the front says protein box, 15 grams, 16 grams protein, no one flips over the back.
I love when the granola bars say 10 grams of protein, and then you read the nutrition, it's like 17 grams of sugar, and you're like, damn it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, too, like that protein box in particular, it's like there's a hard-boiled egg. I think there's like cheese and crackers, nuts, and like dried fruit or something. Maybe an apple. Yeah. And you pull those things apart, and none of those things are necessarily bad foods. Right. But it's just understanding that, like, if you picked up that box before your lunch to have that as your lunch because it said protein box on it, like, just understand that you're going to have to actually get protein somewhere else. like,
Yeah.
because you might have hit your carb and fat for that meal, but like, yeah, it's just that's the thing I think that most people on the street are just like not understanding is just like what's actually in the foods that they're eating. Like there's just such a lack of education, and
it's, you know, I don't find, well, nowadays I kind of blame some people. Like, you know, the information's everywhere.
yes,
But
yeah, there's more.
But
a
it's
long
the
time-
culture shift of like looking at the
Right.
ingredients list, even maybe over the
Well, and that's a
nutrition
whole
facts
other thing.
label.
You're gonna get way more looks or questions or whatever else by looking into something than you are for not.
yeah, well, like I was gonna say though, our system does not educate young people
Right.
on two of the most important things
Mhm.
in the world: finances and health.
Yeah.
And then when they become adults, they're manipulated, and their
Yeah.
money is just taken out of their pockets from this reason and that reason. Don't get me
Yeah.
started about the government. But you know, then they also
man.
they don't have control of their health. They're behind the eight ball. Like you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
parents raise obese kids because the parents aren't educated. They don't know how to teach healthy habits to their kids.
Well,
And then the
even
kids
in
aren't
school,
learning it in school.
Yeah.
The health classes are a joke. You know,
and school lunches are terrible.
and
It's
then
like
that's
Domino's
horrific.
pizza
And
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 fries.
the cycle perpetuates. And it's like, at the same time, there's never been more information. Maybe that's what the overwhelming tidal wave, but there's
Yeah,
never
well, and
been
that's
more
something that's
information
hard
available
too.
easier.
Like, yeah, there's so much information out there, and I think that can be like paralyzing for people to get started too,
Mhm.
and just not understanding that like there are people just like when they go to their job, there are people like us that our jobs are to make you fit and healthy.
Mhm.
Like committing our life education to that, and it's just like stop dabbling around on Google and on the internet and just like seek out guidance and like help and coaching. Like that's something that like would just like cut through that problem. And like you guys, I mean, I would like to come in for a class, but I've seen classes happening, but I haven't taken a class yet. But I see on the board that like there is topics that are being brought up throughout the week about nutrition.
Mhm.
That is not an added cost to your membership. That's just happening.
Right.
Mhm.
And,
Like-
and whether they realize it or not, that doesn't happen everywhere. Matt works really hard to make that happen for you.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we do a nutrition blog. We call it Nutrition Daily, and it's
Yeah.
basically every day addresses a different topic. Usually
Yeah.
one day a week there's like a recipe for something
Yeah.
tasty to try. But we go down just kind of like we've been chatting about. Hey, vegetarians, here's some facts and figures you need to know about this.
Right.
Like the cholesterol. Here's the myths and legends.
Yep.
And, the things you need to know, and all sorts of topics. And,
Yeah.
hey, you want to hear some interesting facts about these type of foods? And then we just put it out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we address it at the beginning of every class. Just
Right.
hey, let you know today's topic. And, if you have any questions, people will ask specific questions sometimes, and sometimes people don't care as much. But
Yeah, and that's okay
depends
too.
on the topic. Yeah,
But I just think that, yeah, that information, like, and I think there's more that can be done with current clients. So, like, talk about, I think it's called Changemaker. I think it's a John Berardi book. But he,
I haven't read that book, but I know of it.
Yeah.
No, wait. I did read the first part. I listened to it. Change.
Changemaker.
I read a lot of books.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of books.
Yeah. But he talks about like Red Sea clients and Blue Sea clients, where
That's
like
the one.
Red Sea clients are like people who are already in the health space, even if they're not like coaches, but they're just like clients that are already engaging with.
Yeah, John Berardi.
Yeah.
PhD.
Yeah, yeah. He,
Because he started Precision Nutrition,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
I did not finish that book though.
yeah. I actually don't think I have the hard copy, and so it was like a beach read for me, and the beach season ended, and I guess I just didn't finish it. I don't know.
Well, if
but-
the beach season ended, why should your education?
Yeah, I
continue?
know. Seriously. But he talks about that, and like that the Red Sea is people that are already partaking in health or trying to educate themselves, and like the Blue Sea is pretty much everyone else. And so I think like that is something that I would love to see, like those people, non-coaches, sharing with other people about what they need in their life. So like Nova members and clients, like, man, that person at work like really would benefit from coming into class. And like, how do you get that person to like feel comfortable asking that person to come to a class with them, or like share a little nugget of what they're learning, or,
Yeah.
whatever. Because like there aren't enough coaches there just aren't enough coaches in the world to like do that.
And now I've seen some things. This happened to me recently. I have a client that I'm remote coaching nutrition with, and he had a personal trainer who, in my opinion, gave him just fucking idiotic advice nutritionally. And so they're bad trainers out there.
Oh yeah, that too.
There are things, I've been doing this almost 10 years, and like, when I was new, I was trying. I just didn't have all the information. I didn't know everything. Things were confusing me too, and I was trying to help people. So I'd given some bad advice at times. If you're looking for a coach or a nutrition coach, what would you be looking for, or what do you recommend people look for? Because it's hard to pick and choose. Everyone wants to be a personal trainer. It sounds like a good job.
Yes.
Until you realize this is other people's lives that you're impacting, so you have to.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think there's 2 layers to that. Is one being making sure or finding out a way to see if they're actually getting results with other clients. So like if there are testimonials that appear to be valid, because they're going to apply those same practices to you that they've applied to other people. And so it might not be the same exact program, but just like the principles that they use, like that's what they're going to be using. So I think just trying to do your research and see like, is this person even getting results with their current clientele?
Yeah.
And then I think the other part of that is making sure that, at least in nutrition in particular, I think that you're comfortable with the coach. So like, it sounds like that coach was just giving them not great advice.
It was just, there's no way he could have a sound education background in the nutrition area.
And that can be hard to like, it can be hard as the client in finding a coach because you also don't know what you're looking for.
Right.
Like
True.
You don't have a nutrition knowledge to be like, oh, that's bonk science. Like I shouldn't listen to that person. And so I think like that can be challenging. I think that part of that can be like, I want to say if you knew other people that have nutrition coaches, but you might not if you're just like on an island and you need help.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a like kind of a way to like set a, I don't know, I tell Todd this, it's hard to know like what this timeline is because you can't be like, oh, if you don't get me to lose 10 pounds by this date, then you're not a good coach. Like that's hard to implement like a strict timeline.
Yeah.
Because I have people that are like, I have, a wedding in 2 months and I want to lose 30 pounds. It's like, it's like, well, I'm not a miracle worker. And so it can be hard to do like that to a coach. But I think that there is this like, I don't know, like space for, okay, this is my goal. This is the timeline. And like checking in with that coach if it's realistic or not. And like, if you're getting down the road and you're like, man, I really am not feeling like I'm making progress. And like, maybe this coach doesn't actually know what they're doing. And that's why I'm not making progress. But like you as the client have to go through a checklist of like, have I done the things that they've said to do?
Yes.
And I think that's the thing, like with that client, it's like, okay, if he goes through and like, let's say he just blindly follows this coach and it's just like, even though it's bonk stuff, if it is bonk, but you're doing everything they say and you're not getting any results in any of those metrics or any of those progress markers, then yeah, you probably need to get a new coach. Yeah. But it is hard, like, because there isn't like a governing body for trainers and nutrition coaches and everything else. And even the governing body that is in place, like the CSCS, like there's been a lot of like back and forth with them in CrossFit. Like, so even like CSCS trainers, like some of the information that they've been trained in is not
and it's funny,
up to date. Like,
that's the other thing. And so then you get like these governing agencies or even these certification programs that are like, they have to just give advice that is in accordance with the laws or the standards that are accepted, when sometimes it's like, no, that this is old science. This is stuff that should have been updated 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's what they're held to. Yeah. And so they have to pitch it that way. Yeah. That's why sometimes, as CrossFit's come on a lot of these other training certifications, you realize that just the science of it isn't sound anymore. Right. It's like old school, but they have to legally stay with it. But.
Yeah. That's a tough question. As far as like how to pick them.
Yeah. As far, like I've gotten comfortable coaching nutrition. Like I've gone, nutrition school, things like that. Trial and error on myself, many clients, different things. But really, depending on where you're at too and how serious your health is, I think, a registered dietitian is, they might be hard to track down, as far as getting personal coaching from them, but that's kind of the only foolproof way.
Yeah. And even then, like there's challenges in that too. Because so much of what gets covered with registered dietitians is medical,
disease. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like I worked with a dietitian for the eating disorder recovery, and it's basically like Sunday through Saturday, whatever block, and it's like all blocked out of like breakfast, lunch, dinner, blah, 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 snacks, and it's like there is no way really unless you're dealing with a medical condition where you need to commit the time to follow that to a T, like me giving you that calendar of eating a turkey sandwich with wheat bread and blah, blah, blah for lunch is not sustainable.
Right.
Because you're going to text me and be like, hey, coach, my friends want to go for sushi.
Yeah.
How do I eat the turkey sandwich?
Yes.
Like, well, you don't. You need to figure out a way to eat the sushi. That's where it can be a little bit tough in like the more conventional side of nutrition.
Hopefully a good coach would teach you how to eat food rather than just tell you what to do.
But they don't have time for that in the appointment for the insurance payout.
Yeah.
They have this amount of time to give you the new plan for the week and check your vitals and send you on your way.
That is interesting. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of a registered dietitian from a clinical perspective. I was just thinking because sometimes you see people who are RDs, but they take one out personal training client, especially I know a guy here in Rochester who's an RD, and he's also a CrossFit coach and stuff. So he does a lot of personal coaching.
People who are doing it on the side and not in like an insurance billing
Isn't that again
style, then
the system.
Yeah.
Fucking us again.
Yeah.
The man.
We are talking to an RD coming up, actually. So
nice.
Everyone can stay tuned for that.
That'll be great.
It's interesting too. Like, you get people like, I'm certain you know how to, if I asked you, Marissa, I need to get healthier and fitter, what should I do for my diet? You'd do a good job coaching me. And it's like, I wonder where the difference would be if I asked the same RD, hey, I need to get healthier and fitter. What should I do? Where the differences in philosophy come in.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah. I think a lot of that really comes down to like, I think the exposure of the typical probably registered dietitian would be like a sicker population. Yeah. So it probably really just comes down to like who they've been exposed to and who they've like worked with. The same way that like somebody who might specialize with Olympic weightlifters or wrestlers or people who have like a weight class demand probably aren't a great fit for clients who are pregnant, who are trying to track macros and eat according to their trimesters. That's the other, as far as like finding a coach, like that would be another thing that I would look at is like, who is your coach currently working with? And do those people have similar goals to you? Okay. Because there are so many coaches out there, people do have their like niche of people who they work with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a complicated topic. This is a hard topic to talk about in general. I know we're running way late.
We're
going to have to edit
90
out some.
minutes here.
We're going to be editing out some of your...
Nina's just going to be like getting after
it. We might. It's just, we want...
Yeah, you got to leave the juicy stuff in there.
No, if there was a lot of really good stuff, so I think people can take an hour and a half to
listen in.
That's true.
I heard Marissa's coming to class. That's what I heard.
Come check out this.
Yeah. It'll be fun. Who's the best coach?
Oh, that's really hard. Let's see. I have favorites.
Well,
I
like to think of myself as an entertainer.
Okay.
So if you want some good sound entertainment at 5 a.m,
everyone has.
I'm
their
your guy.
own
If you want like
thing
meaningful coaching advice to help you become a great athlete, there's this guy Todd who comes in here sometimes. With his team of people. You can ask him. I
don't know about the best coach, but the best classes are the morning crew, in my opinion. But that's because I'm part of the morning crew.
We need some evening people to come on here and set the record straight.
We're gonna have some mutiny from the 5 p.m.ers.
I'm biased because the class I coached in the mornings too and noon. Coach noon a lot at the affiliate, but my 4:30 crew was just like
actually
for the PM.
the 4:15. Yeah, PM.
They're like, and they're it's like same group because they're just like they're on that schedule.
I think it's a mix all over the board. Depending on the day, the evening classes can vary in like attendance sometimes a little more. Like some nights they're packed and wild, and sometimes it'll be less.
Well, in Rochester, if the weather's nice, they ain't coming in.
That's probably true.
That's a little true. But I mean, there's
but you
some
still have your very
very
dedicated athletes in the evening classes. Here on Friday nights at 5:30, I'm like,
Yeah, Friday, people who are coming in on Friday evenings.
The 5 a.m.ers and the
They're
6:15ers they're a consistent crew too. I don't know.
Like I said,
the whole gym's pretty great. I don't know.
We're fun.
Morning, I feel like, because you have nowhere else to be.
Yeah.
You know? Like realistic, other than sleeping, but like,
yeah,
you don't have you don't have a lot of schedule.
Do you WOD early in the morning? Do you work out? Like, you're not.
No, I went to 7:30 a.m., which wasn't too bad, but typically my alarm goes off at like 6:57. But I do 9.5 hours of sleep, so I don't sacrifice that.
I go to bed as early as I can most nights, but I have to be up at 4:15 a lot of times for classes.
Yeah, so you'd have to go to bed at like 7 p.m.
I mean, to get 9, I usually 8:30 to 9 o'clock.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
I saw 10 o'clock last night because I was having a fire in my backyard. I can't fucking believe I was up at 10 o'clock. Look at me go.
I was in bed at 8:30 and I slept till 7.
But I still could not sleep in though. I was up at 5:30 this morning.
So that's the problem. Yeah, that's the thing. Once you get on a regimented like wake up, you can't miss the bedtime because you're gonna naturally wake up in the morning.
Yeah, people don't believe that that's a thing. I'm like, nah, you're an early riser. It just happens. Doesn't matter what time you went to bed.
Well, and so you condition yourself. Anything you do. But
that's a good thing. If you're going to bed at the right time.
Yeah.
Right.
But when I used to teach like the 5 a.m., 6 a.m.s, or when I have 6 a.m. clients and stuff, before I like really conditioned myself to like that pattern, it used to be being grueling. I used to dread those Wednesday mornings and 5 a.m. on a winter's day.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's like sub-zero degrees.
Well, it is hard when you coach like a random early morning.
Yeah.
Like.
Oh, it's just all.
Yeah, like I used to do like Wednesdays. It's just like.
I found that I actually like teaching the mornings better. I feel mentally sharper. Like by the end of the day, like from when I'm teaching, I teach all throughout the day, all the different classes. But sometimes I'm just stumbling with my words, or I'm misspeaking, and I feel stupid, or I make a joke, but I forgot the punchline, and no one knows what the fuck I'm talking about. And then I'm always like, "I'm sorry, guys, that my brain is tired. My brain is tired."
That's too funny.
Anyway.
See, I never experienced that. I always see when you're fresh and
there you go.
Well, yeah, I don't know. And then also it's 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, well, you guys came in, so it's my job to make it happen. Make your time happen. But I think that in the afternoon too. I'm just more tired. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us today.
Yes,
thanks for having me.
I hope this was entertaining, if nothing else, to everyone who listened. The nutrition topics, again, I think are complicated. We didn't sit here talking about the specifics of macros because everything is contingent on. Depends on depending on the person.
I mean, we could definitely do something down the road too. I'm interested to see how the RD one goes, but and like if they coach macros or like how they
I'm not sure
how they do it because that's like my
I think
gig.
Yeah, I think you and I have like very similar philosophies on how to approach things. I mean, even just the way we talk, like, hey, let's see where you're at, let's track where you're at.
Yeah. People have questions. Drop them in the comments.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I think if nothing else, people understand. If you can track to a degree for a little period and learn where you're at, just listen to coach.
Yeah,
it is hard not to get some results from. But again, whether you're just into health and trying to live a long time or be, Marissa's competition in the next Open,
there you go.
You have to eat first. I mean, Austin Malleolo made a huge impact on me last time I saw him at a seminar, and he's like, if you can't track your diet and not cheat, I don't coach you. It's because he coaches obviously pretty much games athletes at this point, but it's like, if you can't not cheat for 6 months on your diet and track everything then I just not even gonna waste my time because that's what's going to make a bigger difference than all the clever programming in the world.
Right.
And I was like, touche.
Yeah.
So we're trying to take a bigger, deeper dive and just develop our culture more around food and the understanding of how serious nutrition is and how really it doesn't have to be that serious, but how enjoyable it can be to eat well day in, day out, to get good at cooking delicious, healthy food. I mean, some of those recipes we put up, I don't know how many people do them, but I cook them and they're great.
Yeah, I've tried a couple. They're really good.
I mean, you take it.
He's getting hungry.
I was just thinking about that one we had with like the sweet potato and the apple compote on the flank steak. Oh, that one was great. But anyway,
sounds delicious.
Yeah.
It is interesting too because I think a lot of people actually are like when clients come to me, I find that a lot more people are under eating.
Yeah.
Like people who are already who aren't necessarily on a weight loss journey, who are like currently training, currently doing CrossFit. Like there's a lot of room to like actually eat more and.
Yeah, and then you see more changes in your body because your body has enough calories to grow muscle and develop. And,
which is pretty crazy. Like I think people just think it has to be like a diet. Like a diet doesn't mean you're restricting. Right. A diet just means you're adhering to a certain set of rules.
A diet is just a summary of what you eat.
Yeah.
You know, like what you do. Yeah, it's not on a diet. It's your diet.
Yeah.
But, all right, well, cool. We'll wrap it up.
Awesome.
We'll do some video editing, shorten this one up a little bit, but it was just fun talking with you.
Yeah,
yeah, it was awesome.
And then, look forward to having you on another pod. We'll talk some other stuff. Maybe get more into the CrossFit and sport stuff. We talked a lot of CrossFit and sport with Harley and CJ last night. Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Cool. Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thank
you.
I would actually give up plastic if I thought me giving up plastic forever would like solve the problem.
I know people have done challenges where it's like they try to produce as little waste as possible in a week.
Tried to do that and I was like doing so good and then COVID happened and I was like, okay, it's just so much easier to buy all of this plastic wrapped stuff at Wegmans. Like every time I leave Wegmans, I'm like, oh, so much plastic. I'm like, at least I'm recycling it.
So I recycle notoriously. I'm a weirdo. I'll like wash my garbage.
Oh yeah,
basically.
I wash the bags. They have a bag of bags in the car to take to Wegmans, who are supposedly going to repurpose those bags, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
Watch this John Oliver episode on his show on HBO, and they were talking about plastics, and it ain't fucking good.
No, it's terrible.
Most anything that makes contact with food is not recyclable.
Yeah.
And that's like the main thing I recycle. Just stuff that touches food.
Yeah, but that's hard too because the grocery stores and markets in the U.S. compared to other countries, it's way harder to get out without plastic. Mm-hmm. Like you can't go to as many fresh markets. Like even when you go to the public market, they try to bag the food again. You know, it's just like it's hard.
Yeah, it's tough. But they could put it in compostable packaging, which if it had food on it, it does cost more. But at least they'd get some kind of compost.
I don't know how recycling works, but it seems like you would just melt it all down into a big soup again anyway, right? No.
Well, mostly
just do that at your house.
I don't know. No,
most plastics
I don't know why they
that's
can't I don't know how turn into stuff like. I was convinced for a long time that the bumper plates were just recycled tires. Isn't that what some of them are?